Welcome to Fintech Confidential, bringing you the people, tech, and companies that change how you pay and get paid.
Worry about fraud now instead of next year. Take a still image and animate it. So I don't even need video of you. I could take you off Facebook or LinkedIn if I have a nice and decent enough high-res picture, and now I can make you flap your lips, turn your head, and the whole bit. Blink and smile, do everything you need to do in real time. To paraphrase Full Metal Jacket, you're not even a human freaking being. You are an entity. You are a thing that is presenting me data points. And I'm going to transform you from data into a live human being, a person that I have a root of trust with, that I can do business with. Now you talked about having a beard. This is why we're like 1 in a billion match rate accuracy. I'm concentrating on the parts of your face that never change. It's bone structure. So if you have a beard, you put on a little weight, you lose some weight, whatever, that's fine. Unless somebody like literally crashed you in the head with a bat, you're pretty much the same between the ages of 13 to 16 till death. It takes anywhere between a 3 to 30 second clip of a voice to pretty much play it back. I saw it on NBC News. Guy talks into the microphone and then they call his wife. And then she can't tell the difference. That's scary. But someone was becoming me in real time. Hey, I never sent that payment. Well, what we do is like biometrically determine, yeah, that really was you. You did that. You cannot repudiate it. Yep, sorry, that was you.
Support provided by Skyflow. What if you could build fast but not break privacy? What if you could ensure data privacy, governance, and compliance with just a few API calls? What if you could worry less about PCI requirements while actually improving privacy and security? How much more time would your team have to truly innovate? How much faster could you build and ship new features? How much more powerful could your app be? Skyflow is a zero-trust data privacy vault delivered as an API. Skyflow's radically simple design lets you collect, secure, and tokenize personal information like card data and payment details. And with built-in features like encrypted data analysis and sharing, anonymization, and advanced governance, your days of choosing between data security and data usability are over. Whether you're just concerned with PCI compliance or need to go further to include CCPA, GDPR, SOC 2, and beyond, Skyflow has you covered. What if you could build fast but not break privacy? With Skyflow, you can. Visit skyflowsecure.com today to learn how. Welcome to another episode of Fintech Confidential's Uncut. I'm Ted Huff, and we're here today diving straight into the heart of what matters in fintech. No fillers, no fluff, just the raw, uncut truth. We're here to challenge the norms, question everything, and share our unfiltered thoughts. So let's get into it and explore what's shaping the future of fintech right here and right now. Today, we're tackling a topic that feels like it's a bit straight out of a sci-fi thriller, but it's very much a real-world crisis on how deepfakes, large language models, and voice cloning are being pulled together and creating what can only be described as a Molotov cocktail for social engineering. These AI-driven technologies, while they are revolutionary in their own right, they've become powerful tools for cybercriminals looking to exploit trust, manipulate reality, and execute fraud on unprecedented scale. From deepfake video calls that authorize multi-million-dollar wire transfers to AI-generated phishing emails that are so convincing they bypass even the most advanced defenses. These cyber attacks are redefining the cybersecurity landscape. But why does this matter for fintech? Well, it is money, and financial institutions are at the epicenter of these threats with billions of dollars on the line. And sensitive consumer data is at stake. Now, this risk isn't hypothetical. It's actually happening right now. And understanding these threats and learning how to counteract them isn't optional. It is essential. And so, as you can imagine, I'm not going to break it down all by myself. I've brought in someone to help us break this down because it's so complex and it's evolving so fast. And this landscape is ever changing. I'm excited to welcome Jeff Scheidel to the show. Jeff is the Vice President of Operations at authID, a leader in biometric identification and authentication solutions. Now, Jeff has over 40 years in software development. 32 of those have been dedicated on identity and security. He's worked at Fortune 500 companies. He's secured their identity, their verification processes. Not only that, but he is a thought leader in this space, written many, many white papers, as well as his book that was designing the IAM framework with Oracle, the Identity and Access Management Suite. That book is actually a cornerstone for identity management, and his expertise extends way, way beyond that. And at authID, Jeff has been instrumental in advancing AI-driven fraud detection and biometric security solutions, including the FIDO2 passwordless authentication technology that is designed to deliver seamless, secure identity verification at scale. Now, Jeff, with your deep expertise, both in the technical and regulatory aspects of this, I'm really excited to hear your perspective on how all these things are coming together.
Technology is like a hockey stick. So it evolves and evolves and evolves, and now it's going boom, now it's exponential. And just about anything we invent as humans that to advance our race, we always end up somehow corrupting. And that's an example. The Industrial Revolution, gave us mass production and a lot of employment. Also gave us toxic Superfund sites. We had the first manned airplane ride, and within a couple of years, we're dropping bombs out of planes. The internet's the same way. It's transformed the universe. It's transformed commerce, social entertainment, the whole world. And then, but you have people who are addicted to it. Our teenagers now spend like 4.5 hours every day on social media. AI is another example, but AI does a lot of amazing things. It can predict cancer. It can detect fraud. It does things for education. AI does a lot of things in customer service. At the same time, it's also helped propagate fraud in multiple ways and in multiple vectors. So we always have to stay ahead of it, because no matter what we come up with, someone will figure out a way to use it for the wrong reasons. So we use it to combat itself in a way. And it makes itself smarter and more dangerous every day.
Why should the audience care? And realistically, from my perspective, it's like the cyber criminals are always evolving at a faster rate than the services that can stop it. We've already seen a number of deepfake scams that resulted in multi-million-dollar fraud cases, which I think it's funny that we use scams and fraud like in the same thing. I think we're somewhat confused between the two a little bit. We'll get into that a little bit later. But they've impersonated everything from individuals to their grandparents to CEOs of companies, and they have been extremely highly convincing in everything, including phishing scams, video calls. I mean, there's so many different things, and this synthetic imposter really, I have a feeling is going to hit any financial company, anybody that's moving money or responsible for moving money. I have a feeling it's going to hit that pretty hard. And I'd love to get your perspective on how big of a target you think they are.
In the fintech space, I mean, a lot of it's about payments, a lot about, like you said, money movement. And with banks going all digital, there's always more risk. The ability to, you share financial data. Okay, make sure who is actually providing that consent, who is actually asking for your data. If I take over your account, I could link your data to my account, and now suddenly I'm driving my Uber around on your dough. You ought to make sure that, and when tier ones are doing merges and you're merging accounts, I know what that's like from personal experience. My local bank got bought by another bank in my state, which got bought by a bank in Ohio, which got bought by a bank in Pennsylvania. And
banks don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't buy each other.
Fish. I had accounts in two of those, as it turns out. And when they went to merge them, like, okay, let's say you're John Smith here and you're Jay Smith in another place. You say, oh, should be easy to merge. Nope, it's not. And now that's also an opportunity for people to grab your stuff. 1033 not only allows that data sharing, kind of mandates the ability to do it, and it does provide additional opportunity for people to grab that data as it's flying through the air. Open banking means more data sharing on a regular basis. You need stronger and stronger authentication. A wire transfer, that's as good as cash, right? Which is why sometimes you have to go into the bank. ACH, you can call it back. But that's where first-party fraud kicks in. Hey, I didn't send that. I mean, people, and that's how actually first-party fraud in detecting that's sort of a crystal ball thing. How often does that person deny that they got that, or it showed up broken or whatever? So, hey, I never sent that payment. Well, what we do is like biometrically determine, yeah, that really was you. You did that. you cannot repudiate it. That's the, non-repudiable. That's the term. Yep. Sorry, that was you. But make sure that you know deterministically who's behind that device, who actually made that request, to make sure it didn't come from somebody that wasn't authorized to do so. But money movement is the biggest thing, is who is actually making the request, who's actually sending.
I think one of the first well-publicized scenarios of using these technologies for social engineering was the UK-based engineering firm ARP. They lost $25 million in a deepfake-enabled wire fraud scheme. They convinced a Hong Kong-based employee via a fake video call with AI voice and video to of the company's CFO and other senior execs to have them move money out of the bank accounts and pay invoices for over 15 transactions before they figured out what was going on. That's $25 million that is gone. Because like you said, wire's just like cash.
It's a James Bond level attack, by the way. That gentleman actually had doubts about the thing. It wasn't like he was naive. But now he's getting reassured by colleagues. It looks like them. It sounds like them. This was quite a set. There's another one in Hong Kong for like $4 million around the same time. Maybe the same people. That's an amazingly sophisticated one. Sometimes you say, how did someone fall for something? In that case, absolutely. That was very, very well done. And it was, 15 transactions, 5 accounts, and poof, it's gone.
And I've seen this with a lot of clients that I have in fintech, is they question their own sanity a lot of times, right? It's like it's shaking the foundation of everything they know or think to be true. And so they're working through all of this and trying to figure out, how do they identify these different things? Because it's not just the video deepfake, it's not just the audio, but it's the ability to collate so much information through LLMs and pulling it all together and make it sound, feel, look just like that individual. That just blows my mind that we're to that point today.
All right. So you're intimately familiar with Money 2020, obviously. Go there every year myself. And so this last one in October, we did a series of deepfake workshops. And I think we do them. I've seen other people do them. We do them deeper than just about anybody. But we show it, creep people out sometimes, say, hey, I've got that guy's image and I'm going to animate it. And I'm going to put it in front of them and say, look, man, that's you. And the latest one we just did, I'm talking to a well-known politician. I'm talking to Sylvester Stallone, talking to Mr. Bean, if you know who that is. And I was talking to me. So someone was becoming me in real time. It sounded like me. If you combine it with voice cloning, then you do that as well. And it's in real time. There's a website that you can subscribe to very cheaply right now. They're offering lifetime subscriptions too. The demo is this guy's laying in bed and he doesn't want to have to get out of bed and get in front of the usual bookshelf backdrop to do a meeting. So he makes himself into an avatar. And when he's talking, his avatar is mouthing his words and he's sitting with a shirt and tie in the right place. You can become someone else in real time. And now you can fool somebody. Now you add the voice cloning. If it's someone they don't know, but they don't know what the voice sounds like anyway, you can even take a still image. And this is what we do. Take a still image and animate it. So I don't need video of you. I could take you off of Facebook or LinkedIn if I have a decent enough high-res picture. And now I can make you flap your lips, turn your head, and the whole bit. Blink and smile, do everything you need to do in real time.
It's been really interesting. And I've tried a couple of those. I've used 11 Labs and I can totally tell it's not me because the pauses aren't right or the enunciation of specific words isn't the way that I would say it. It's close, but not quite there.
Somebody doesn't know you, that's a different story. Diamonds Are Forever, 1972, James Bond. Bad guy Blofeld, he talks on the phone and instantly turns into the voice of Jimmy Dean. He's trying to imitate that guy. And that couldn't really be done then. Now it's actually very easily done. It takes anywhere between a 3 to 30 second clip of a voice to pretty much play it back. I saw it on NBC News. Guy talks into the microphone and then they call his wife. And she can't tell the difference. That's scary. There is a story that's been circulated quite widely recently. This lawyer got a call from his kid saying, Dad, I was in an accident. I broke my nose. I hit a pregnant woman and I'm in jail. And I need bail. He gets another call from another guy says, hey, I'm the lawyer. You need to come up with $9,000 in a hurry and bring it to this other guy before he goes to the airport to bail your kid out. This is a lawyer. It's not a dummy. He gets the $9,000. Then he gets a FaceTime from his kid saying, Dad, I'm fine. You got scammed.
Oh.
It's that whole inducement of panic. And this is what they do. They try to get you to act quickly before you think about it or before you call somebody else and say, what are you thinking? Somebody related to a friend of mine got just a regular call. Hey, this is your bank. Someone's trying to steal money from you, from your account. You need to go to our website, generate a PIN, read me that PIN back. I'll stop that steal. But that was the bad guys getting
access to the account.
The whole thing is generate that panic. Now, if it's a voice, and it's your kid, that really induces panic. They're trying to get you to act before you can think about it and not fall for it. It's frightening stuff.
One of the things that I found interesting is that although legislation almost always trails all the bad actors and all the different pieces, there are a couple of things that are going on right now. You've got the Take It Down Act that is addressing the non-consensual content and identity fraud. I've seen a lot of, even at Finovate fall last year, there were 3 companies talking about how they're working to identify some of this fraud. There are also other companies that are like, hey, guess what? We figured out how to provide these authentication services to break off of that. And it's been really interesting. But the place that I seem to see happening more frequently is the leveraging of large language models for written scams and frauds. It's a lot harder to verify that. The emails. I mean, I still remember looking at, I was just looking at the other day when I was doing research for this, I was looking at old phishing and fraud scam training documentation we used to do for a lot of folks. And it always pointed out, it's like, hey, just remember, it may look exactly right, but it may be using the wrong style of the letter A in the description of that company. So those are like the types of things that are going on. But what are some other ways that you're seeing LLMs accelerate some of this stuff?
The most common cause of bad customer experience isn't that high tech. It's embarrassingly simple. Yep, it's answering questions. In e-commerce, it's really easy to get bogged down with common questions, whether that's where's my package, how do I return or exchange this item, or just to cancel a subscription. Solvpath is an AI-driven customer support system that enhances the customer experience with visual formats and self-serve technology to empower your customers to handle their own support requests. Get the best customer support system for your business. Get Solvpath. Get started by visiting getsolvpath.com.
Okay, so LLMs, for people who don't know what they are, large language models, they ingest a lot of text. They ingest a lot of information. They can turn around and generate that text. They can generate papers. They can generate articles. They can answer questions. They can do math. They can write a certain amount of code. They're not going to build core technology, but they can write a certain amount of code. If you go to Google and you look for something, the first thing you get is an AI summary, right? It's effectively, they're not always correct. My oldest kid, she looks up history questions and things like that to add to the curriculum. And she asked some stuff about the Plantagenets and these kings and queens of England. And she got back like half the answers were wrong.
Oh, no.
It's doing its best. I've used them from RFPs and you get about 70% of it right. And you have to go fill the rest. Or you ask a general question and it gives you a very specific answer. I asked, like, how do you integrate with a third-party system? It says, here's how you integrate with this third-party system. Like, okay, a little granular for me. But they do a lot of smart things. They can understand the relationships between words. And this is what makes them dangerous. You're talking about old phishing stuff. One of the original phishing attacks way back when was the WAMU, Washington Mutual. Mm-hmm. And everybody was getting them. I was getting them. I was not a WAMU customer. So I thought at first, well, this is a mistake. Like, oh, no, it's not. It's an attack. Hey, time to reset your password. Click this link, put in your old password, put in your new password, and you're set. Nope, you're giving them your password.
Yeah.
Right? And it looked great. The colors were great. Looked a little like the LA Rams uniforms. The colors, the logos, and the copyright, it looked pretty sharp. Somebody spent time on this. After that, somebody else said, wow, this is a cool scam. I'm going to do that. And they did it stupidly. And these things got worse and worse. And like you were saying, bad grammar, bad punctuation, bad spelling. I'm not this dumb. Well, LLMs let you fix that. They say, write me a proper English, write this, proper grammar, proper spelling, proper everything, personalize it. You can even have the LLM put in and put in a little repeating loop, say, I've got my list of harvested emails and names and locations. Hey, John Smith, living in this town, personalize that, and it's lacking in those mistakes. Otherwise, you hear about Eastern European scammers that will hire English speakers to English correct their the phishing attacks in the UK and the US, but LLMs let you do it at scale.
Yeah.
That's the thing about AI. So if I get a fake ID from one of those websites and I print it out myself, I laminate, whatever it is, or they send it to me that way, okay, I've got a onesie. But if I use AI to do it and I'm feeding it to the camera, I'm doing it at an industrial scale, and I have a bot that just sits and cranks it out. And the more volume I do, the more likely I am to catch somebody who will finally fall for this. So that's where LLMs are greatly escalating this stuff. And phishing, by the way, isn't necessarily a thing unto itself, unless you're trying to install malware. Mm-hmm. Phishing also allows you to map out an organization, for example. So I used to do security assessments for Oracle. And I went to one manufacturer where somebody used phishing to map out their whole org. It was a manufacturer who requested raw materials, who authorized the payment, who sent the payment. And they figured out everybody. They took out a domain that was the same as that company's name, but they changed one L to a number one. Yeah. It was really hard to detect. The phishing attacks allowed them to figure out who did what to who. And then they were able to say, please wire this money to this foreign account for raw materials, I think it was tin or something. And then boom, they got hit 3 times. They couldn't figure it out. And I finally said, this is how they did it. It was rather sophisticated. The 2 big gaming intrusions, ransomware in Vegas a year and a half ago, phishing led to the ability to call in the help desk and say, hey, this is me, privileged user. Would you please reset my password? I have to take care of something for a remote location. Now I've got my privileged access, install ransomware, and then, untold millions in losses. So, but AI, again, allows you to do that in large volume and in better quality.
Well, and I think one of the other things that you didn't mention, which I'm actually quite surprised, is the ability to ingest all the information about a company so that when somebody goes to one of these fake sites or they call the phone number, they're creating these fake customer service agents. So it sounds like a customer service agent at the institution or the company. The information they're pulling matches. You're able to use AI to create a dupe of a website relatively quickly. It used to take days, if not weeks or months, to pull together a scam like this. And now it's a matter of a few hours. You could have it all up and running after you've got all the information. So
if somebody duped our website and it looked almost identical, and we could never figure out exactly why, if they're trying to harvest emails or what it was or phone calls. But yeah, they duped our website, and it's hard to stop somebody from doing that. They took out a domain. It's ours with a couple of characters changed. Yeah, but you can use AI to help you build that in a hurry.
There was one company that was building thousands of fake e-commerce websites to harvest credit card numbers from people, but people never actually saw the site that was behind it. And so it was like this card skimming, charging for different things all over the place. They leveraged the AI website builder tools that a lot of these companies, heck, even GoDaddy offers it. Just about everybody's got some sort of fast building AI tool. And then there are a bunch that's all they do. That's a big piece as well.
These things make themselves smarter. You're familiar with the term GAN?
Yeah.
A simple-minded explanation is 2 robots sitting across the table from each other. And I'm going to throw stuff at you that's fake. And you're going to say, that's fake. And here's why I think it's fake. Okay, I'll try it again, but I'll make it better. And it keeps going backwards. And it's a generator and what's the other term? A discriminator. And so I'm going to finally, until I get to the point where I can actually fool the discriminator. And that's how they get smarter, faster. And I said it's a hockey stick, right? They get faster, they get better at an exponential rate to the point where they figure out how to fool even a lot of automated systems. Cryptos, they still use manual review. You send in a picture of your ID and your face, and it takes 2 or 3 weeks to get an answer.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny you mention that, because I was just trying to open a new bank account for one of my new companies, and it had me scan my ID,
and then take a selfie. And every time I take a selfie, it would fail. It's like, no, it doesn't match. And it was, I believe, I don't know for certain, but I have a feeling it has to do something to the fact that my ID didn't have a beard and I do have a beard now. I end up having to call the bank, and we tried 2 different authentication methods. And they said, I'm sorry, Mr. Huff, you're just going to have to come down to the branch because or shave. I'm not shaving. I'm just not shaving, but come down to the branch so that we can physically identify you as being that person to set up this business account. I thought that was just mind blowing. And then there was another one where I sat on the phone for 2 hours answering questions about my credit history, about the application I did, just so that they could feel confident and comfortable that I was who I said I was. That's a crazy level of KYC.
Any data you can provide for standard KYC AML can be stolen. Any data you provide can be stolen. That's why we concentrate on biometrics. I'm going to make sure it's really you. Now, you talked about liveness. So liveliness is I'm drunk at a party, I put a lampshade on my head. Liveness is, I say, this is a live person in front of the camera. Okay. Not a screen replay, not a picture, not a picture, not a deepfake being injected into the camera. By the way, there's 2 types of deepfake attacks when it comes to camera. One is, it's called presentation attack. I'm just going to put a fake in front of the camera. It's a screen, it's a picture, it's whatever. And the other one is injection, where I put stuff behind the camera because I'm afraid of getting caught at the camera. I go behind it. Let's start with liveness. There's 2 types of liveness. There's active liveness, which is blink, smile, move your head around, like you're Linda Blair. That's kind of useless because you can make a still photo do that with a deepfake. I can make you do blink, pull your ears, and make you do anything I wanted you to do. So passive liveness, also, it takes less time to process, but passive liveness is just, I'm taking a picture. There are micro movements, voluntary, involuntary, especially when you take multiple frames. I can still tell it's a live person in front of the camera. Now, you talked about having a beard. This is why we're like 1 in a billion match rate accuracy. I'm concentrating on the parts of your face that never change. It's bone structured. So if you have a beard, you put on a little weight, you lose some weight, whatever, that's fine. Unless somebody like literally crashed you in the head with a bat, you're pretty much the same between the ages of 13 to 16 till death. You're pretty much the same. That is that person. That's the match. So we do that liveness detection. And we also do that, by the way, for the ID, because now you're going to say, well, is that a live ID or is that a deepfake? Deepfakes have visible and invisible artifacts. We can tell that they're a deepfake, besides just a regular printout. Deepfakes, of course, a little more nefarious, a little better. Injection attack is, okay, now I'm afraid I'm going to get caught. So I'm going to use a virtual camera, some other piece of hardware I'm going to plug in. I'm going to go through the network like a man in the middle. One of the Avengers movies, Iron Man goes down the bottom of the ocean and he sticks something in one of those undersea cables that goes between Europe and US. That's effectively a man in the middle attack. So I'm going to inject something into the network because I'm going to get around that camera. So what we have to do is say, okay, I got your image, looks good, but man, you didn't start where you're supposed to. If you go to customs in Canada, for example, and they get up there and they ask you a million questions, you're not carrying any firewood or anything that brings bugs, right? You hand them that thing you filled out on the plane. And they check it out and they stamp it. And then as you're walking out to the exit to get your luggage, you hand that thing to that guy who's standing there by the exit. If you don't have a stamp on there, you're going to say, wait a minute, did you skip the line? So injection attack detection is effectively that. I'm going to make sure you didn't skip the line. That where that picture started was where it was supposed to. The camera that's controlled by the app that's requesting authentication and verification. And it originated in the right place. So when I get it, I say, okay, it started from the right place. And by the way, no, it's not a fake. It's not a deep fake. It's not a printout, not a screen replay. It's a live person. This is where we specialize. Want to make sure that it really is, you're not, and then of course you have to match up the ID. You have to look at every aspect of the ID. And that's where manual review kind of falls flat. Because like the first time I did a crypto thing, I'm holding my passport next to my head. Okay, can they read the barcode? Not really. Can they really tell that image is me? Probably not. So I'm looking at every aspect of that ID, all the markers on it. I didn't steal an ID and use an X-Acto knife and paste another thing on there. Is the barcode data match the front? Mm-hmm. Is that the way the state of Michigan does barcodes? Michigan and a few other states do barcodes different than the rest of the country. Provincial and tribal IDs up in Canada, we cover like 14,000 documents around the world. So you have to know what all those templates are. And then now that I know that you're good, the ID is good, do the images match? Does your live face match the image on there, despite beard, glasses, whatever it may be? And then when you come back every time after that, show me your face. I've got a biometric root of trust. We don't store faces. You're talking about legislation, BIPA, QB, GDPR, DPDP. Do you consent to give your face? It's weird because you think if I'm taking a picture of my face, am I not just already providing consent? No, you got to make sure that somebody checks the box. I consent to use my face for this purpose. It can only be used for that purpose. You can't turn around and resell it. When you're done with it, you should destroy it. If I ask you to destroy it, you should destroy it. I went to a BIPA conference, Biometric Information Protection Act. I was invited by Steve Craig from Peak IDB invited me, and our local congressman, Bill Foster, was there. And it was all about how stringent this law is. Illinois right now has the strictest law on the use of and the storage of biometric data. But somebody did say, we jealously guard our PII until somebody offers us a $5 coupon off a pizza. And then we're like, hey, you want my DNA? I want $5 off a pizza.
Food will adjust your thought process really quickly. I know it feels like a lot of people, this has been a rapid rise, but it's just been kind of progressing along, at least from my perspective, because I spent so much time in this space. But if you were to give some guidance, what are some ways and how should folks like financial institutions update the way that they're doing their identity verification protocols to stay ahead of the threats, other than having me come down to the branch and verify me in person?
That's a problem in public sector, by the way. They don't really have automated way to step up. The only kind of friction they have is coming to the office. Ouch. It's the worst kind of friction. Public sector has the hardest. In the private sector, we always talk about MFA, having multiple factors. SMS, like a lot of banks use it. Okay, are you signing in? Well, I'm going to send a text to your phone because of SS7 attacks. People can intercept that as well. And of course, you never click a link in an email. Education.
Or a text message.
Or a text message. Yeah, I keep getting the U.S. Post Office messages. Hey, you can't deliver your package.
I wish I would have kept it. I got a text message earlier this week, and it was, click here to pay your fast track bill that's due so that your license isn't revoked. And I'm like, well, my license, one, is in a state that does not have any sort of toll system, nor do any of the toll system companies or states have arrangements with the state in which I have my driver's license with to do the reciprocation across that. And on top of that, the phone number started with a +6.
Plus it's coming from some country.
And really all that does is say that, hey, Ted, your info is out in the black market to be bought and sold. You're a target now.
That's smishing for people who know that term. Phishing is you get an email. Smishing is by SMS. I keep getting the U.S. Post Office one. Hey, click here to fix your address because we're unable to deliver your package. It's USPS-com.something.something.ru.
.ru. Oh, that's awesome.
Used to be they would hide it. Now they don't even hide them sometimes. I taught my wife and kids years ago, you see a link, hover over it and look at the bottom of the browser and say, here's where it's really going to.
Because of this, there are websites and different services that you can literally take the URL, drop it in there, and it'll run the path through a headless browser in the background to tell you where it ends up. And if it identified as a real place, or if it's how many times it's redirected, and all of these different things. And, I do business with a lot of different companies and a lot of different countries and a lot of different places. And I have introductions from partners all the time. So I can't just assume that because I don't know the person sending it to me that it's not real. So I have to go through all of that. And after I've gone through that, I even have taught my wife and my kids, like, hey, this is, if you see something, don't click on it. And if you really want to know what it is, get me, and then we'll walk through this process.
When in doubt, err on the side of caution. An old boss of mine spent $50 on the dark web to find out, see if his security questions are out there. And his most obscure security questions, including the name of his first kid's first grade teacher. He thought, how do they find it? And that was one of the security, and it was out there. So KBA is kind of ugly. The biggest provider of personal devices deprecated fingerprint. This fingerprint's a good modality. We call it modality, being voice, face, fingerprint.
Okay.
Facial biometric to us is the way we're going, and we have for years. We've been used for helping run elections in other countries. You can only register once and only vote once. But a lot of it is just make sure you know who's behind the device. And the problem with biometrics, users are afraid of having their face out there. One of the stadiums in Pittsburgh, you can skip the line if you register your face ahead of time and say, bye, I'm going in. One guy says, I'll stand in line with my ticket. I'm not giving you my face. Mm-hmm. Because they're worried about it's now in a honeypot, which is why we've addressed that and say, well, I'm not even storing the math of your face. We're storing public and private key technology, PKI. It's been around a lot. I'm not storing anything on the user's device. And I'm recreating the private key every time. There's nothing that is any kind of biometric artifact whatsoever. It's strictly PKI. There's nothing you can reverse engineer into a face, not even the mask of a face. And plus, it's only that ecosystem. It's only for that bank, that fintech, that neobank, whatever. Companies worry about the liability. Okay, what are they worried about? Getting sued, being whatever. It does happen even here in Illinois. There was a story on my local news. One of the restaurants was using biometrics for clock in, clock out. They're using facial. Clock in with your face, the employees at the restaurant. Somebody said, oh, there's a law called BIPA. Wow, you're keeping my face. I'm suing you. Okay, well, that's because they're keeping actual faces. We keep 0 faces. Delete my biometrics, there's no biometrics here. So that's how we're trying to get around that whole problem with adoption is there's nothing to sweat. There's no honeypot. There's no data that can possibly be stolen, but we can still search for duplicates. For example, people say, you've been banned from the casino. You either self-banned because you're a gambling addict or you get kicked out for being a crook, a card counter. Okay, you're on the no-no list. Now you came back with a different ID. Like, you were John Smith, now you're Fred Jones, but I've seen that face before. Sorry. By one-to-many searches. And again, it's still completely digital, no facial. You can enter by face, pay by face. But again, the fear of biometrics is strictly based on privacy and compliance. And so companies worry about compliance and they worry about the users not wanting, especially their consumers. If they're employees, like, hey, man, you're going to give me your hat size if you want to work here. When it's consumers, no, they can take their business elsewhere. So you have to keep them happy.
Over the years, I've worked with Pay by Touch, biometrics company. I've worked with companies that use the retina, handprint, fingerprint, palm print. I mean, heck, even Amazon has launched their Pay by Palm. But as I was going through all of that and doing the research, and I wish I could remember the report that was done, but basically it said that there's only one method that is universal across all humans biometrically, that is unique to them individually, that every human has to have. It was something to the effect of a CO2 off-gassing of the body, and that every human, based upon their DNA and their body, like the kinesiology and all the different pieces of their body, our lungs take in so much oxygen and we express so much carbon dioxide through our mouth, and every person's carbon dioxide print coming out of their skin is different. There's no duplicates ever. And you can't even within our variance range crisscross them over. So it was like the next closest thing was DNA.
Okay. I've never ordered one of those detectors from Amazon.
And I don't think you can, but
if I could read your aura, I'm not that good either. Facial biometrics. The thing is, that's something I can use any device with a decent camera. Is the thing. You mentioned synthetic fraud before. First party fraud is it's me. I'm just a deadbeat. Third party fraud is I pretend to be you, and synthetic fraud is I pretend to be somebody who doesn't exist. And it's a favor to organized crime because they'll invest in it. I'll make up a guy. I'll even get a fake employment history and credit history.
Heck, even pay taxes in some cases.
Yeah. They get a credit card with, $200 limit, whatever. And they'll make purchases and payments. I'll buy dog food. I'll buy detergent, and do that for a year. And I can get that credit limit way up. Now I invent some other fake IDs and I put them as authorized users on my card. I wrote a couple of white papers. I had actually published in American Banker magazine. And one was on synthetic fraud. And one of my favorite examples is this guy got away with about $625K. He had a card. He built it up. He put like 50 aunts and uncles on it. His original application, the address was a shopping plaza in Escondido. And like, okay, non-residential address. And how many aunts and uncles do you have? What does your house look like?
Well, it's a shopping center, so you can have a lot of them.
I guess you put them in the storeroom. And if he hadn't got greedy and gone back a second time, because he maxed everything out, ton of dough, more than $500,000. If he hadn't got greedy and gone back a second time, he wouldn't have got caught. Deepfakes help with that because now I can actually create the IDs and I can create the faces that go with the IDs. So that's why you have to have really good deepfake detection. And it gives you that extra thing where you say, it's not just data anymore. I'm actually presenting something to the camera. And so now deepfakes have given all new life to synthetics. Still see old fakes. So I talked to a very large credit union last month, and they still said we still see fake IDs that are been messed with Photoshop and even MS Paint. But again, those are onesies. You're not gonna crank out 1,000 of those a day. But I can tell AI, hey, make me 5,000 of these a day, and eventually one's gonna get through.
I still remember one story where they got an application for a business account and a loan, and they wanted also a payment processing. Like they wanted they're like, we're starting a business. We want to do all these things. And the funny part is you looked at it and the passport and the tax documentation and all these things matched until you really dove into the country in which that they were trying to set all this up in. Because it was supposedly a person that was a resident of France and had built this and had all this history in France, but they were deciding they were going to open another business in a Caribbean island. And, we're working through all of this, and we come to realize when we really dug into it, that this person never existed because their information didn't show up, but 3 years prior, like it didn't exist. And this person was in their mid to late 30s. So we're like, okay, so how did you avoid all governmental pieces up until like your early 30s? Like that's not even humanly possible. But hadn't the team looked at it and tried to figure it out, like it that could have been really bad.
Yeah, it's like they walked out of the ocean. Yeah. After we determine that ID is real, we'll also take the data off that ID and then go to particular data sources and say, does this turn into a real person? And that's the beginnings of KYC. And if you're going to go AML, you might have to go a little deeper in AML, especially if you're looking for like adverse media.
And that's actually where we found it, right? Was diving into the AML side. We were expecting there to be some adverse media based upon the location and the person and the type of business that they were doing. We were expecting to find something. We found absolutely nothing. And that was a type of business that there's always something adverse for it.
Well, you'd rather find that he got arrested for spitting on the sidewalk in Thailand than finding nothing at all.
Exactly.
Because you'd say, okay, there's at least a record that he existed at some point in life.
Well, and it was a highly litigious industry. The fact that we had no legal actions ever taken with that person's name on it in a space that if you sneeze wrong, they're going to sue you because you changed the airflow in their space. Like, and I'm over exaggerating, but it's really crazy like that. Now let's quickly shine a spotlight on a game changer in the financial world, Clearingworks. Simplify your financial management with a one-stop solution for all your AR needs and with a single login. Are you intrigued? Visit clearingworks.com to schedule your demo today.
At the end of the day, in the fraud business, I always say, you're not to paraphrase Full Metal Jacket, you're not even a human freaking being. You are an entity. You are a thing that is presenting me data points, right? And so I have to try and turn that into a real person. You could be a foreign agent, you could be a crook, you could be a bot, and you're presenting me data. Even images are data. Like I said, there's multiple ways to inject images behind the camera. It's just data. At the end, it gets encoded and sent in an API call. What we're trying to do is say, I'm going to triangulate. I'm going to make sure your ID is good, your face is good, You're a real person and you're the right person. ID good, you're good, and you're good together. Maybe check the data on the ID as well, barcode, the whole bit. And I'm going to transform you from data into a live human being, a person that I have a root of trust with, that I can do business with on a regular basis. Because we don't want to be in the business of, I'm in the business just to detect fraud. I mean, that's what banks and fintechs do. Otherwise, you hang out your shingles. I'm taking no applications on the red fraud. I want goods. I want good customers I can trust to grow my business. The more transactions they transact, the more money we make, and then they get what they need out of life. I reject fraud because it's the cost of fraud. One large bank customer of mine on the East Coast a couple of years back, they budget $110 million every year for fraud, and that's actually a low amount compared to some of them. Okay, fraud costs. I want my users never to hear on the news that I got nailed. They're like, well, if you got nailed, how do I know you're securing my data? And then I don't want to be known as an easy mark. Then people will come get me. One of the reasons I've been telling people for decades, if you go to a bulletin board to say, hey, I have a problem implementing this security, like a firewall, for example, don't use your own email and your own name, dummy. Make up a 1234XYZ at Gmail, because when this happened to a famous case, a firewall that had a published exploit, and then all the bad guys said, oh, I know all the companies use it. Zing, until they got upgraded, right? So you never tell people which security. It's a problem. You want to put out a press release, because sometimes people say, oh, don't use my name because I don't want people to know what security products I use. But you don't want to be known as an easy mark. And you want to starve the rats. Don't give them anything to chew on. Don't provide them. It's all about growth.
I was having a conversation at Money 2020 of all places, and the conversation really wrapped around, hey, are you going to this fraud summit? Are you going to that fraud summit? Are you going to like, I was getting asked about all these different things. And then the next question was asked, hey, do you know any fraud analysts or head of fraud at these companies or head of security at these companies that would be willing to speak, because we're having a really hard time getting them to come speak? And it was really interesting because we looked at it, and then so I started talking to a few other friends. Their job really is to stop fraud within an organization. And almost all of them were saying, hey, I really don't do social media because I don't want there to ever be some sort of a tie back to it. Like all of these like really, really intense levels. And these are people that are looking at billions and billions and billions dollars of fraud. It was funny for me that was the extreme that they would go to, is to almost try and be invisible.
It reminds me working with a head of I'll say a large hospitality organization, and he's gone into his social media to rip out any pictures he can find of himself that might be animated. He's Facebook and everything he's allowed one picture of himself online, and it's like this, so nobody can take his picture and animate it. When people say we don't have a lot of fraud, it tells me one thing: you're not looking real hard. You're really not. You're really not watching. Even people say we're not
business,
or you're out of business. You're not seeing deepfakes. It's because you don't know how to recognize them. You might see the regular ones. I did work with a company. I don't say too much about it, what they did. They'll give it away. They would every Wednesday, it was a startup. Every Wednesday, everybody took off to do manual reviews. And they manual reviewed like 70, 80% of all their applications. Like, okay, keep your fraud low. Does that scale? Hell no. You can't do it. You need to automate those kinds of systems, or you can't stay in business. That cost of sales is crazy. So literally they bring in pizza. Everybody stop your regular stuff. We're all going to go through all the manual reviews, all these things. The other aspect about manual review, by the way, that means a stranger is looking at your docs and has access to your pictures of your docs. My wife and I were going to London, and I'm checking online the night before with our passports, and it said this could take up to 7 minutes. I said, oh, this is going to manual review in some other country. Yeah. It took 13 minutes and we got rejected, like you did.
Oh,
and like, I'm not wearing a funny hat or Groucho glasses.
I would have been happy for mine to go to manual review for 13 minutes. Like I would have been happy for that, because if a human looked at it, they would have been like, okay, That's good.
Yeah, but I wanted to be able to get to the airport a little later. So we had to go a little earlier. For whatever reason, they can't recognize me or her. And again, that means some stranger someplace far away has pictures of all these passports, which is frightening. You know where this stuff is going to end up. Again, that's why we don't store any biometrics, any images. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, who's got a hold of that?
Well, I mean, with all of the data that's out in the marketplace today, like you mentioned, even the most obscure security questions can be found. Just about everything can be found. And so securing that data is super important. I would love for you, Jeff, as we start to wrap out, I got a few questions that I just wanted to kind of give the audience some guidance on. What do you see as the best strategies for businesses to prevent this Molotov cocktail of social engineering? Give us like 3 strategies that they should be employing today to not eliminate it. We know it can't be eliminated, but really to cut back on it.
Multi-factor, no matter what. Even things that can be intercepted, every next step is going to keep out at least the dummy hackers. I mean, my boss thinks the term hacker is kind of anachronistic, but you think about somebody worms their way into your network. Yeah. Okay. Then you had script
An
kiddies.
Unauthorized user.
Exactly. And then you worry about script kiddies. They would download things and he still has some talent. They would, okay, now I know how to use this thing. Now any knucklehead who can use it, who's good at prompting, get AI to do things for them. Any extra factor will filter out a certain percentage. That's still no guarantee. Education's a big thing. People, they still convince little ladies to buy Amazon gift cards to send to the IRS to pay off their debt. Okay. Education. I wish that people would do PSAs. I wish the government would say, hey, if you get the IRS is never going to call you or text you. It's not going to happen. They use snail mail, right? Help desks are rife with intrusions because they have limited resources for actually determining that you are who you say you are.
Well, not only that, but they're also incentivized to very quickly resolve. Like all their incentives are around speed of resolution. And by putting some sort of friction in place, that slows that down, which keeps them further away from getting paid the maximum amount.
There you go. And then of course you half the time it's like, I'm hitting 9, I'm hitting 9. I want to get a real person, going to get a real person. Help desks should still help, and they can resolve it quickly by helping you help yourself. So why we love help desk use case is, okay, I'm the help desk guy. I'm not going to just reset your password because I think I know you, or you told me enough that you learned about somebody on LinkedIn, pretend to be them online when you call the help desk. I will send you a link, for example. Now, if you're locked out of email, for example, you're down. I can't send you a QR code, but I can send you an SMS to the phone on file for you. And now you're going to hit, and even if it gets intercepted, still no good to the bad guy. Here's why. I'm going to hit that link, and it's going to say biometrically authenticate. And you have to show me a live, real face that, I've got my
as long as they don't have a beard. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Jeff.
Groucho glasses. And so now I've helped you because the basic human nature instinct is I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm not going to help myself because it's hard. Authenticator apps are awful, by the way. People hate them because, I've got a new phone. I got to reinstall the thing. I have to reconfigure. They're dreadful. And then hard keys are tough to hand out for employees. But the help desk can still help, but not by just going to the 80 admin console and giving you a new password. By the way, I'll tell it to you over the phone. No. I'll send you a link and you still have to biometrically authenticate with your face. And that way, even if it's intercepted, the bad guys can't do it. 87% of all breaches still involve some version of human element. So education is still a big thing for your workforce. Don't click on this. Don't click. I don't care if it's a CEO saying, hey, would you please send me that document? We do the same thing. We try to fool our employees and don't fall for that. Private industries don't educate their own customers. And then people fall for the dumbest things, unfortunately.
Well, what do we got for the third thing, Jeff? So we've got multi-factor, we've got educate. What's that third thing that they can start working towards today?
To stay out of trouble and to keep your customers happy, you have to have very good security policies for how you store data. A lot of security policies say you have to rotate passwords every every 30, 60, 90 days. And people hate that, right? It's just, I have to think of another password and I got to write it down. In the old days, when they said never write your passwords down, say somebody breaks in your house, and for God's sake, don't put it on your phone or your laptop, right? Now in the crypto world, they're like, yeah, write your password down because you lose your wallet, you lose your money. But having great security policies about that. Now, those keys that we store instead of biometrics, we can rotate those without even having to make the user take action. So that's like the best thing. They don't even have to do anything. We can rotate the key and then it's still authenticated, as opposed to, I'm going to make you change your password. But have great policies that are enforceable internally that say you have to follow these policies and you can't work here, and make people adopt them. Don't let them get around them. And then you can publish certain aspect of those policies for your users, even your consumers, to say, here's how we're safeguarding your data. That also keeps you out of compliance trouble. I used to keep up on all the compliance things. So at Oracle, I wrote the white paper. How do you sell to higher ed? How do you sell to medical? How do you sell to healthcare? And had to know all the compliance, the power companies, NERC SIP compliance. And early on it was, if you got breached, write me a letter saying it wasn't due to willful neglect, slap on the wrist. Then after a while, the fines get really brutal. And so we're past that slap on the wrist point with a lot of these compliance laws. And with biometrics, it's now. You get in trouble now. You get fined now. Have those policies in place to stay out of compliance trouble, and then make sure users feel comfortable doing business with.
So I'm going to throw a fourth one, because you brought up a point that I have a conversation at least once a week with one of my consulting clients. And it is, how do we remove the friction of passwords, but maintain compliance with PCI, FFEIC? I mean, we could probably go through every alphabet agency there is that has some policy around authentication. Like, you've actually written some white papers on passwordless stuff. So that's why I wanted to ask you this question. It's like, what could you do that meets the criteria of most, if not all of those, but makes it easier on the user?
So, for example, we use facial biometrics. Passwords are easily broken. The more often you have to make up a password, the easier you're going to make them. Hardware keys can be stolen. They're also expensive to provision and to get back, and they get lost. I met a guy at Money 2020 as a joke. He kept all his old hardware keys. I want to mention the brand name on his belt.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. They're the RSA tokens. I know they are.
No, it was RSA, it was UBs. Yeah.
I've had a few of those.
Like a big Christmas ornament. You would shake them like, hey, I've got these going back like 20 years. So passwords can't be the only thing. There's no way in heck. You cannot rely on passwords alone. If you have to have passwords, you better have at least one other factor. You can't even rely on having your device, because your device could be, SIM swapped, could be stolen. If someone gets hold of your device and get in it, they can even install their own biometric on it. If it's device-based biometrics, like we're cloud-based. Like, there's nothing, we store nothing on the device. If it's device-based, someone can compromise that simply by holding it. That only proves that somebody's got it in their hand. It doesn't prove that it's you holding your own device. So you have to have a non-repudiable factor that says there's no way this can be anybody else but you. Anybody else can know your password. They can know your social. They can know your email, your phone, your address, your history, your security questions. Anything that's just data-based, as it were, can be known by somebody else. It's what you know, what you have, but then we deal with what you are, who you are.
Well, I need you to look into this fun crystal ball that I've got here. And I want you to look forward, 3, 5 years, and tell me what the future of fraud and security looks like.
Now, eventually, we'll be doing 3D stuff. You see fraud that's 3D. That's what I think. Virtual reality. We may be using that for authentication, for all sorts of things, for transacting, for meetings. I'm in a meeting with you and we're all looking at each other, even though we're all in different places. Well, you're going to have people who can do that in 3D as well. So you have to have the ability to detect those as well. We may get back to a point where people start putting out smartphones, smart devices that do allow other modalities. Well, you'll still see people. Somebody's going to figure out how to fake fingerprints. As you have additional factors that people come up with for authentication, people will figure out how to corrupt them every single time. You're going to see more and more synthetics. Again, third party, I steal your stuff. I got to use it now. And it's just you. Synthetic, I can generate. I can't generate a whole bunch of Teds all at once, but I can generate a whole bunch of Johns, Freds, analysis. And so you'll see more and more volume. As you see more supercomputing in people's hands, they can do it in greater volume. Right now, to do really great deepfakes, you need a pretty good hefty GPU. So I can be your face and your voice at the same time, and they all sync up. As we get more and more powerful computers, people will be able to do that with their iPad or whatever it is.
And we're really close to having publicly available quantum computing, and that's going to shake so much stuff up.
Yeah. The deepfake stuff we do now, we can do pretty well with standard computers. You get the heftier box, they do really well. Pretty soon, everybody will have a heftier box, and it's going to be, $500 at Best Buy.
Well, last question is that if you were to give a fintech founder or a fintech leader one piece of advice that they would use forever, what would it be in one sentence?
One sentence?
Yeah.
Well, number one, I'd say, keep your sponsor bank happy. Most people who go to the neobanks, they don't realize there's a big bank behind the neobank. They just haven't asked. They realize there's a bank back there. Worry about fraud now instead of next year.
All right.
A lot of the fintechs I've dealt with, they launched, they said, our investors just want warm butts and seats this year. They just want account openings to show growth. They'll worry about fraud later. No, worry about it now instead of later. Start developing good policies and constantly keep up with the evolution of technology, because whatever's good next year will be used for something bad. Read everything there is to read and keep up with tech as the hockey stick keeps evolving.
All right. Well, the one thing that I got out of all three of those things that you gave us was begin with the end in mind and keep moving that direction. Jeff, I appreciate you hopping on. We had a lot of fun trying to get this all coordinated. We finally got to sit down. It's really insightful to hear someone with your expertise and your background in this identity space, in the fraud and security space, to really talk about how all these pieces play together and what that means and what we can do about it. So I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it very much.
Well, folks, that is another episode of Fintech Confidential's Uncut. Stay tuned for more as we bring additional folks to you to give you their unfiltered perspective and opinion on topics that are impacting you. And as always, keep moving forward. As we wrap up today's episode, I've got one last thing for you. If you're in the trenches fighting fraud and financial crime, it's a complex battlefield. That's where Hawk's AI tools for real-time payment screening, AML, transaction monitoring, and dynamic customer risk rating come into play. These aren't just buzzwords. They're game changers designed to make your compliance more effective and less of a headache. Imagine slashing through false positives with precision and giving your compliance strategy the edge it needs. Head on over to GetHawkAI.com to sign up for a demo and discover how their platform can revolutionize how you fight fraud and financial crime.
This has been a production of DD3 Media, with all rights reserved. This is provided for informational purposes only. It is not offered or intended to be used as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. We strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, but will not be responsible for any missing facts or inaccurate information. You comply and understand that you should use any of this information at your own risk. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile financial assets, so research and make your own financial decisions.